This episode is brought to you by Hasa. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the Bottom Feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to go back in time and I'm going to give myself advice. When I started out in the business, I was 16 years old back in 1988. And these are things that I would tell my younger self if I could go back and tell myself some advice, and maybe I would have listened, maybe I wouldn't have listened. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy Coaching Program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. I get that everyone has a different personality and there's different levels of conscientiousness. This is the care you put into what you do in your business. And the first thing I would tell myself if I were able to go back and just speak into my younger self, I would say that the customers don't really care as much about their pool as you think they do, or how much you care about their pool. And I think this is an important aspect of pool care that you realize. Now, I'm not giving you the green light to be lazy or to do poor service or to cut corners. This is not what I'm saying here at all, and I would not tell my younger self to do this either. But I would say that I thought too much and I spent too much time thinking about problems at a pool. You know, there was pools with certain stains in it, pools that had issues, and I wouldn't say I was obsessed about it, but it would occupy a lot of my thought. I'd be like, oh man, I gotta get this working with the customer, or this looks terrible and the customer's going to be upset, or there was algae in the pool and, I should have treated it. I should have taken care of it better. All these things were kind of going through my head, and I was thinking a lot about this when I was, younger, and everything kind of stuck with me. And I realize now that I'm older, and it's not because I'm cynical. It's not because I'm burned out. None of that is a factor. It's just the reality that the pool, in most cases, most customers, they don't really like their pool. They would not probably build it again if they had the choice. They bought a house at a pool sometimes and they wish they bought a house without a pool. The kids grow up, don't use the pool anymore. All these are factors that I realize that are in play out there. And yes, you do have the customers that do care, that look at the pool with a fine-tooth comb. There are those out there that do that. But the majority of customers, they don't even notice things. Like, there was one pool in particular, I was really obsessed about the modeling that started developing, and it was a gray plaster pool, and I started getting these weird modeling stains in it. And now I'm older and I know that nothing I can do to prevent that. So I was trying stain removers. I was like concerned they're going to come out one day and say, hey, what did you do to my pool? But I had this pool for years and the customer never even mentioned it. They didn't even notice the modeling. I was the one that was like noticing it and looking at it. Now there are customers and that will turn on their pool light at night and look at the plaster and be like, hey, that doesn't look great. I'm going to have to call the builder or talk to the pool guy about it. I don't really look like how this looks with the reflection. Or it's a cloudy day and they see like the discoloration of the plaster. Yes, that does happen. There are customers that will get on your case about things. But I found through the years that the majority of people don't even notice things. There was a member of my group that hired someone to replaster a pool. And I guess this is something that they do in other states. I haven't seen it done here. Really, I haven't seen it done here in my area, where they won't even take the old layer of plaster off. They'll just plaster over the layer of plaster. I'd never seen it happen, but they did this to this pool. And he noticed that it kind of left kind of a gap from the tile line. It was like kind of, and he hired them, and he made a mistake of like actually doing all of the kind of contractor work. He hired the company, he supervised it. The customer was not using the house. It was like a vacation home. They weren't there that often. So, the company that he hired didn't, jackhammer the whole plaster out. They used what's called the bond coating method, where they actually are supposed to cut back the pool light and the tile line, and then they put the layer over the other, but they did a poor job of this, and you can see that there was like 2 layers of plaster. So the customer finally came to the pool, and he was there, and he was kind of fidgeting and really nervous about it. And the customer looked at it and said, "Hey, that looks great. It looks much better than before it looked." And that's it. He walked away. And he never heard anything from the customer again, and he was obsessing over really nothing. So the takeaway here is that don't be lazy, of course. Don't cut corners. Don't skip the pool. But maybe the customer is not sitting there all day long thinking about their pool like you are, and just let things go. I mean, if there's a problem with the pool and you feel like you are obsessing over something, don't do that, because chances are the customer is not even thinking about their pool. Half the year, they're not even looking at their pool. And half the time when the kids are grown up and out of the pool, they don't even know they have a pool back there. It's one of those things where you are the one who's obsessing. You are the one who's caring more about it than they are. And maybe don't do that to yourself. On the same line of thinking, I would tell myself not to be lazy out there. Now, when I first started out, yes, I was learning the ropes, and I was a hard worker, that's for sure. But I was also young, and I cut corners a lot. I would get to a pool, and instead of vacuuming the pool because I was kind of lazy, I guess, that's kind of the word I put it, I would just kind of put it in main drain and brush it to the main drain. That's not really effective. I don't recommend doing that. Or if there was algae in the pool, I wouldn't go back to my truck necessarily to get some liquid chlorine and sodium bromide to treat it. I would just brush it, maybe add a bag of Cal Hypo and call it a day. So those kind of lazy kind of things that I did really came back to hurt me, because when I went back to that pool the following week, it definitely was a full algae bloom, or the pool just didn't look clean. And sometimes I remember a few times where I would vacuum the pool and I was in a rush and I wouldn't brush the sides down. And so there was like little streaks of dirt sometimes left behind. You've probably done this before, especially when the pool has a lot of dirt. And I remember customers calling and saying, "Hey, did you vacuum the pool? Because there's still streaks of dirt everywhere." This was before I had automatic cleaners in every pool, by the way. They were popular back then, believe it or not. They, the Navigator and the Creepy Crawly, but they weren't in every pool. And so you were doing a lot of manually vacuuming. Probably, I would say 20% of the pools had automatic cleaners in the 80s and 90s. It became more prevalent later. And there wasn't a huge amount of choices out there. There was just the Hayward Navigator. There was the Creepy Crawly. Zodiac, I think they had the G2 out and the G3. So there was like a small amount of cleaners that you can pick from. They were effective, yes, but they weren't as plentiful. So I was doing a lot of manual vacuuming. So that showed when I didn't brush the pool after I vacuumed. So little things like that, if I were to tell myself now, just really be diligent about cleaning the pool. I think brushing the pool is really critical, regardless if you're going to vacuum it, making sure the pool looks great. There were times when I had automatic cleaner and I just kind of skimmed a few leaves off the bottom and I figured, oh, it's going to just get the rest of it. But then, of course, invariably, the cleaner would get stuck on something and then the pool would look terrible. And the customer was like, "Hey, did you show up this week? Because the pool looks really bad." This happens a lot. And so, you think you're going to have the automatic cleaner take care of it, and it doesn't. So you want to leave the pool polished every time. And the great thing about this era is that there are so many different tools you can use to spot clean a pool. You can use the bottom feeder. You can use the Coquito cleaners. You can use the WaterTech cleaners to kind of just vacuum out certain areas of the pool. And there's no need to drop a full manual vacuum in there and clean the pool. So that's the great thing about being a modern pool pro, is that you have a lot of tools to like get those spots in the pool. But I would just tell myself to not cut corners and not be lazy, because it's going to come back to hurt you later. And I learned that lesson fairly quickly anyway, but this is something that I would tell employees. Of course, if I had employees, I would make sure that they knew that cutting corners would come back to hurt them. I remember I took over this account one time, and there was a sign-in sheet, and I took over this pool because it didn't look that great. And so I opened the timer, and I saw the sign-in sheet, and the person signed in for the whole month. Like it was like the beginning of the month, and the whole month was signed in, and he had the chemical readings and the dates and times in there. And I kind of laughed because that's kind of a good method if you are kind of a slacker. Just fill out the sign-in sheet for that whole month, and whether you show up or not, you signed in. And the Pool Guy Podcast Show has teamed up with UPA to bring you affordable, reliable liability insurance starting at just $64 a month. Get up to $2 million in coverage, and the members of my coaching group get an even lower rate. Protect your business and your peace of mind. Sign up with UPA today by clicking the link in the podcast description. I won't spend too much time on this one, but I think it's kind of important. I would tell myself, of course, that your truck does matter. I started off in a Dodge Rampage, cool truck, stick shift, a real hassle with hills and driveways. And then I thought I would upgrade to a Toyota Tacoma. Again, another manual transmission truck. Big problems on certain aspects of that. There was no power steering, and it was kind of a small bed, but it ran well. Toyotas are really good. And then I moved to a Nissan Frontier, and I also got a manual transmission because I kind of liked it, even though it's a bit of a hassle in traffic, a bit of a hassle on steep hills. But I like it because, it had good acceleration and it had really good horsepower. It was a 2005 Nissan Frontier with 270 horsepower. So it had power. You could load that truck up, no problems. It had a big V6 engine, but it constantly broke down on me. I had so many problems with engine codes and timing chains and, starters, batteries. Everything was a problem with this truck. They had such an undersized battery in this thing that they would wear out very rapidly. 18 months, I think I got out of the batteries. So there were drawbacks to this truck. Now I have a Honda Ridgeline, great truck. So I would tell myself, just go for the better truck right away and stop struggling through the years with a bad vehicle. So the truck does matter. Full size, compact, whatever you want to get. Really research your truck to make sure that it's reliable. That's the key. The number one thing is reliability of the truck. Comfort, yes, it's got to be comfortable. The Ridgeline is really comfortable. But I really think that focusing on a good truck and not having to switch later is important. So if you're thinking about vehicles or upgrading, go for a really good truck because I think it's going to really pay off, for a lot of factors, reliability, comfort. It'll make the day much more enjoyable when you're driving a really good service truck versus a beater. This last one I think is really important for business now more than it was ever before. And that is that the customer is always right, and you don't want to argue with customers. Now they'll leave a bad review, or they'll leave a bad review on like every site for you. They'll leave one on Google, they'll leave one on Yelp, they'll leave one on, TripAdvisor, whatever. They'll find sites to leave reviews on that will damage your business because people are touchy. They're probably more touchy than they were in the past, maybe because of, social media, or we're more divisive than we ever have been before. But regardless, people will report bad customer service, and it will damage your business. There's no doubt about that. Bad reviews do hurt you. Even if you go on there and respond to it, it does hurt your overall algorithm. So the customer is always right when even you kind of think in your head they're not right. And, just put yourselves in their shoes. I had an incident where I got a hotel room. It was in Chicago. I was going to a conference, and I booked it like months in advance. It was like I took my son, so we always get like a suite. And I got to the hotel, and they gave me like just a double bedroom. So it was a Courtyard by Marriott, by the way. And I'm a Marriott member, and it did me no good because they had sold out all the rooms and double booked. Apparently, I realize now that if you book a room, maybe verify that it's there because they'll overbook hotels all the time when there's a conference or something. Anyway, I got the room. I paid for the room with Expedia, a third-party site, and I just went to a different hotel because I wanted a different room. It was $178. I could never get the hotel to answer their phone. I could never get the manager to give me my money back. I called Expedia, I spent hours on the phone with them. They could never give me my $178 back. So basically, till this day, that was like a year ago, I have never gotten my money back from either the Courtyard Marriott or Expedia because they're really, really bad customer service. And there's just no way to get a hold of anyone with any authority. So just a word that if you do have to cancel your hotel room on the spot while you're there, chances are you're never going to get a refund because no one can actually do this. It's kind of weird. They feel like it's a no-show basically, or once you cancel, that's it. You pass the cancellation time. I'm saying this because I won't stay at another Courtyard Marriott, because of the bad experience. It's just something I won't do ever again. And it's because they just didn't handle it correctly. I mean, how hard is it to refund someone's money when they're the ones who gave my room away? It's not that difficult in my mind. And the same thing with pool service. If a customer is telling you that, you gave me this pump basket and I found it on Amazon for $9, you charged me $20. Is there a way that you can match that price? And I usually tell them, order the basket and I'll put it in and I'll just return you the money. Little things like that go a long way. Or if the customer is complaining about the fact that you're just not cleaning the pool well, there's algae in the pool, whatever. I mean, it could be even minor things. Really just let the customer have their say and they're correct. Because I've experienced bad customer service and it's really frustrating and irritating, not just this hotel incident, but at other aspects I've experienced bad customer service. And it does really leave a bad taste in your mouth, and you don't want customers to have that about your business. And just put yourself in their shoes. You have a pool, you've spent $100,000 to have it built, and the person taking care of it, in your opinion, is not doing a good job. And how would you approach it? You'd probably be upset. You'd probably be like, I spent all this money on this pool, and this pool doesn't look the way I want it to look. And you would get upset probably, or a little bit irritated, like they're getting with you. And I think reversing things really helps you put it in perspective. And you just don't want to argue with the customers. I've unfortunately done this before where I want to make my point. And if you win the argument, great, congratulations. But you've probably lost the battle because they're going to leave a bad review or cancel service. So winning the argument is not really winning the argument nowadays. Just fall on the sword. Let the customer have their way. Even if it's something that is, that they're completely wrong and off base on, it's just better to let it go. And so, yes, I've argued with a customer before. I remember, I think there was a windy day or something, and the pool didn't look that great. And so I cleaned it the best I could. When I got back there the next week, they were upset. Like, they left the pool really dirty last week. I didn't appreciate it when I went out there after you left. It just didn't look good. And I tried to explain to them, the wind cleanup takes a couple of weeks sometimes, and I did the best I could with the time I was there extra time, and he just wouldn't take it. And so I lost my temper and I just left. And this was in the era where there was no Google reviews or Yelp reviews, so I was lucky, but I lost the account. And it was regrettable because I did the pool across the street. And so it was like they were like right next to each other. And I regret it now that I lost my temper. And if you do that and you lose your temper, it's human. It's not something that you should beat yourself up about. But I think if you learn this lesson that, you're trying to provide the best customer service, best pool service, and just let the customer win. Any situation, they're right, you're wrong. And, it's just the way it is in business. Any business that's successful will have good customer service. If you've been in In-N-Out Burger, Chick-fil-A, that they'll bend over. They really help you to have a good experience there. And it's just a burger, or a chicken sandwich. So why can't you replicate that in your business where you're taking care of pools that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and the customer wants a good service, and you even may be providing good service and they may not think you're providing good service. So you see how this can be like a rabbit hole and go endlessly until you blow a gasket. So just let things go and kind of have thick skin out there. I think that's the key. Have really thick skin and don't let these things bother you. You can vent in groups and whatever, and the customer did, but just don't vent to them and let the customer win the battles. Looking for other podcasts, you can find those by going to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, clicking on the podcast icon. There'll be 1,900 podcasts for you there to listen to. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguidecoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by Hasa, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.